Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round of Pace's Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, apologies, this was supposed to come out yesterday evening as you guys was watching this. Few things happened. Phone was taking a long time to charge, a few other bits and pieces took place, and yeah, you're getting it now. However, you're probably going to get a bit of a better perspective because I'm literally recording this just as the weigh-ins for Jake Paul and Mike Tyson have finished, which is not a perspective I expected to have prior to the event. But with that being said, let's get into that card so we can get into Latino night afterwards, and yeah, we'll take it from there. So without further ado, let's get into the picks. Okay, so look, we're going to kick it off with the card, you know, Paul versus Tyson, Tyson versus Paul, Taylor versus Serrano 2. There's not a lot of stuff on the undercard that I'm particularly either interested in or that I believe is going to be quote unquote competitive. So I'm just going to kind of give a general quick thought on each individual fight, and then I'm going to get into my breakdown and predictions of the main event, which for me is Taylor and Serrano. Now, I know that the first fight of the night is supposed to be Bruce Shushu Carrington against Dana Coolwell from Australia. Now, that fight, interesting to me. You've got Shushu, who is 13-0 with 8 KOs, and you've got Dana, who is 13-2 with 8 KOs, never been knocked out himself. I wouldn't call Dana a pressure fighter. He has pressure in moments, but he's more of he tries to be a bit more of a boxer, maybe a bit of a rough technician, if you want to call it that, where Shushu is very, very slick, very polished, comfortable on the inside, likes to play the outside a bit more, but is quite happy to exchange. In this one, look, Dana Coolwell, I expect, you know, rough, rugged Australian, you know, generally speaking. Technically, the majority of them aren't great, but they're normally quite fundamentally decent. You know, they're decent fundamentals, but grit, determination, willpower, and heart is very much trademarks of most Australian boxers. So looking at that fight, I see it being a bit closer than, you know, than most people would probably think. Not really seeing Dana Coolwell much. I've seen a few of his fights, so I do know that he will go in there, give it his all. I don't know who necessarily I would say has had the better level of competition. I'd probably go with Shushu in that respect, but I feel like he's a lot more well schooled and well drilled, and I feel like he's going to be looking to try and make a statement. He's going to be looking for the action, which at times maybe could leave him a bit vulnerable to counter shots. But Coolwell, I don't really think has got the same level of power as Shushu. Now, that's not saying either one has got amazing power, but generally speaking, I think Carrington is cleaner with his work. He's going to be a lot easier for the judges to see what he's doing. It's also going to be a lot easier for him to negate what Coolwell's doing, and for the judges to see that. So I do see him winning this fight, unanimous decision. Spirited and competitive in moments, but I do think he's going to do more than enough to carry the fight. I'm not going to speak about the Goyat fight and Whindersson Nunes. Know nothing about either of them, so fine. Shadasia Green versus Melinda Watpole. Now this one I've not seen. I think I've seen a couple minutes of action of Watpole, but what I saw from the weigh-ins, she doesn't really look confident. She looks very nervous from when she was stripping down to get on the scales, to even the sort of the smile, the little timid push that she tried to give to Shadasia, and then ended up getting pushed out frame of the camera afterwards. I actually had this down in my predictions league as a unanimous decision for Shadasia Green, but now having seen two of them together, I'm changing my mind, and I think Shadasia's going to get a late stoppage. Probably about round 7. I think maybe round 7, round 8, especially considering that Melinda doesn't have the KOs on the record. I just think she's probably, Shadeja's going to try and probably walk through the shots. From what I have seen of Belinda, she's not a big mover. She's going to try and sort of out muscle and, you know, maybe jab, maybe move to the side, but it's not going to be like angles, and Shadeja's not going to be just chasing her down, apart from maybe when she's retreating after a heavy shot. So yeah, I do see a stoppage coming in that fight, around about round 7 or 8, based on what I've seen between the two. Lucas Bardi, obviously, probably, yeah, had the knockout of the year thus far, or one of the major contenders for that. He's taking on Armando Casamonica, I think his name is. Never heard of him. I've seen the record. He's got 3 stoppages. I think he's like 15 fights or something like that. Bardi is 17-0 with 15 KOs, so you already know where the power's coming from. Now, Casamonica could be a very good boxer, but as far as I'm concerned, I think Bardi's got the momentum on his side. He's probably going to be looking for the statement, and based on the differentials in power, I think he's going to be trying to just bust up Casamonica. He's going to try and pull him into a dogfight and overwhelm him, flood that basement, drown him, probably in the middle rounds. That's sort of my prediction on that. Mario Barrios versus Abel Ramos. Look, Barrios is nothing great. This is a very much, to me, like a hand-picked opponent. You know, PBC special, even though it's not a PBC card. But Barrios is, look, he's gotten better, definitely since the fight he had with Tank Davis, obviously now being up at 147. But look, elevated to full champion, didn't win it in the ring, and you know, I think this is the first defense he's having of the belt. So yeah, fairly simple run-of-the-mill defense. Ramos is tough, so I don't think he will get knocked out, and if he does, it will be extremely late in the fight, probably rounds 10, 11, 12, your championship rounds. But I expect it to go the distance, but I expect Barrios to win a unanimous decision, and anything other than that, to me, is a very concerning situation. Now, let's move to Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. So the first fight took place in April 2022. Very spirited fight. I had that fight scored 97-93 to Katie Taylor. I gave her the first 3 rounds, I gave Amanda the next 3, and then I gave Katie the last 4. Now, 2 of the, if I remember correctly, the scorecards on the night was Amanda 96-94, Katie 97-93, and then Katie 96-93, which basically means that Katie won 7 rounds on the 2 judges' scorecards that gave it to her, but one of them scored it at 10-8 for Amanda, probably in that 8th round. They would have had it scored exactly the same as I did. I've never even checked the rounds to see if we gave the same rounds either way, but that's how I had the fight scored. I didn't think it was controversial, didn't think it was you know, a suspect decision, or you know, one of those could have gone either way type scenarios. Amanda had the bigger moments in the fight, but Katie had more moments, whether they were as big, you know. This one though, the problem that I have with this fight is the fight's in Texas. Now, one thing that I've seen from most fights that have happened within sort of Texas and the Texas Athletic Commission is that they heavily favor aggressive fighters, come forward fighters, volume punchers than anything else. Now, Amanda, if she does nothing else, she always is on the front foot. She is basically like a pressure fighter, or a pressuring boxer puncher, heavier, more on the puncher. She will just come forward, try to work behind that jab, try to dig to the body, just constantly walking forward, always trying to get into range. She very rarely takes a backward step. She very rarely circles the perimeter. Katie Taylor, on the other hand, can definitely do the ambush thing. She can slide in, hit a 2-3 punch combo, dart out, and then try to move around the ring. Now, if she does similar to what she did in the first fight, in the first couple of rounds, and then sort of round 7, round 8, and round 9, then she could quite easily win this fight. Like it would be way too hard for people to give Amanda the consideration, because Katie was just making the separation between them clear. The problem is Katie likes a fight. She likes to hold her feet. And one thing that we do know is Amanda Serrano, of the two of them, is the heavier handed woman, especially pound for pound. Now, yeah, maybe the power doesn't translate as well higher up the weight classes, just because obviously, you know, people have got more shock absorbers, and Katie has felt the best punches from Amanda. She's felt the hardest punches, and she survived them, stayed on her feet. Yeah, she looked out of it a little bit in the 5th and the 6th, but she managed to stay on her feet, grit through it. So in her mind, she's probably going to be thinking, okay, I've taken your best shots, so they're not going to bother me. That could be dangerous, because then that means that Katie might try to exchange with Amanda and maybe try to prove the point that not only can I take your shots, I can actually outland and outdog you, and maybe even try to stop you. So if that means that Katie tries to get into a gunfight with Amanda, she's going to get hit a lot more than she needs to, even if she survives the shots. Now, potentially, she's had a couple more years of wear and tear, so she could end up getting caught in an exchange, and then getting caught with something that she didn't need to, maybe even didn't see, or maybe the resistance isn't what it was, based on the fact she hasn't been in the ring now for coming up to a year. So all of these things could now take place. She's 38, Amanda's 36, so neither is a young, you know, spring chicken in the game. But Amanda has been more active, so she has been used to getting punched a bit more than Katie has as of late. Although, to be fair, she has been in there with subpar opposition, so, you know, maybe that's something you can also look at. But my issue with this fight is, as I said, Texas Commission, they're going to look for the aggression. Amanda will be the aggressor, and in any round that I think there is not clear separation between the two, Amanda's going to get the consideration for it. Now, I think, very similar to the first fight, there's going to be some hairy moments for Katie Taylor. I do think she sees it out the same as she did the last time, but I think that she will play into Amanda's hands and try to have a scrap at times, rather than, you know, trying to show the clear separation. Now, she usually does do much better in rematches than first fights, but she does have the same tendencies and the same habits, especially when she falls in. Now, if Amanda decides she wants to start using some uppercuts in this fight, she could actually affect things a lot more impactfully, because if Katie falls in and gets caught in that uppercut, she could even potentially get dropped just being off balance or just stumbling into something. But the way I kind of see the fight playing out, and this is my prediction, this is what I gave on my live watch along, I believe that the fight is going to be close. It's going to be very competitive. It might even be a little bit closer than it was the last time around. But I think when it's all said and done, Katie Taylor is going to be the winner. She's going to be seen as the victor. She's going to have done the better work for more of the rounds consistently, just like she did in the first fight. But I think because this is an MVP Promotions, it's not Matchroom, there's no considerations for Katie. This isn't a neutral, a neutral event. Yes, the judges aren't exactly MVP judges, but they're going to be heavily swayed by I believe that that promotion. I think that the aggression of Amanda is going to be preferred over any backward steps that Katie decides to take. And I think because of that, this is going to go to a split decision victory for Amanda Serrano. But it's going to be a situation where most people watch the fight and think, nope, Katie Taylor won. Katie Taylor won this fight. She deserved to get her hand raised, but the considerations will go to Amanda. And I guess it will be a bit of a role reversal to how some people felt the first fight went. So that's kind of my thoughts on this fight. I think Katie Taylor wins, but Amanda Serrano gets the decision. Now, moving on to this main event, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I'm going to tell you guys now, I'm not giving a prediction. Not because I don't have one in my head, but purely because I don't know how truthful the fight is. Now, admittedly, look, the slap by Mike Tyson in that, you know, in the weigh-in head-to-head, you know, with Jake Paul doing his antics and Mike giving him a slap, that could maybe change the dynamic, and this could actually now be a very real and legit fight. But I still don't know how much of the histrionics are legit and how much aren't. So because of that, I can't comprehensively and confidently give a pick. What I will say is the same thing that I've said previously. If this is a real fight, you would, in theory, you should be favoring the younger, the 27-year-old, now beefed himself up to 227 pounds. He came in at 227, Mike came in at 228, but Mike Tyson actually looked a lot better on the scales at 228 than Jake Paul did. And it goes back to what I said, where when Mike Tyson was like 15, 16, just in those amateurs, he was a solid like 215, 218 pounds, like just as a 15, 16-year-old, not through weight training, not through it, like he's just a naturally big, solid, muscular, like athlete. Whereas Jake Paul, realistically, the roundabout those same ages, and even up until like what, three years ago, was about walking around at maybe 170 pounds, 175 pounds. So Jake Paul has ate himself up to that weight. I don't know how much stamina, and he can obviously have punch power, but I don't know how much stamina and speed he's going to be able to keep with all of that artificial weight on his body. It doesn't sit well on his frame. So if it were a real fight, I would say this is the first time that Jake Paul has faced a competitor who is actually naturally bigger than him, because everyone that he's fought previously has always been brought up from like middleweights or welterweights within like the MMA division. There's normally people at and around 150 to 170, and only just recently, the last, I think the guy Austin or whatever his name was, who was like a cruiserweight, but he was a cruiserweight that came up from 175 light heavy, so he wasn't a natural cruiser. So yes, Jake isn't the biggest of people. I think the extra weight is going to be something different for him in the ring. This is the first person that's naturally bigger than him. This is the first person that's going to know how to play, and know how to actually defend themselves, know how to just be a natural born fighter with probably more boxing skills, fundamentals, tricks and knowledge than Jake will ever know. Mike has probably forgotten more than Jake will ever know about the sport of boxing, and he's a historian. So all these things take place. Plus, as they say, the last thing to go is the power. Now, yes, Mike has got probably knee issues, back issues. He's an old man. Punch resistance is probably not there. But if you can keep Jake scared enough to not engage, then you can control the pace of this fight. Roy Jones Jr. said when he got in the ring with Mike 4 years ago, he was surprised at how heavy them shots were, and he had to use his skills to basically just hold and try to nullify and just stop the shots coming in. So in that sense, this is definitely Jake's hardest fight of his career, which is, actually a bit of an indictment, considering again he's fighting someone that is 31 years older than him. But yeah, as I said, the only advantages Jake has in this one is the youth advantage, because everything else, this is the one time he's actually outmatched like totally in every other department in the fight. So yes, it's going to be very interesting. And yes, of all the fights he's had, this is definitely the most jeopardy he's gonna be in. But regardless of how this fight plays out, like Jake Paul's in a lose-lose situation, because if he knocks out Mike Tyson, you knocked out a 58-year-old man. Congratulations. What's that gonna do for you, your legacy, on your reputation? You knocked out a granddad. If he loses, you got beat by a 58-year-old geriatric with bad back, smokes weed all the time. You're a joke. You're never going to be anything. So no matter what happens here, like, it's a lose-lose for Jake Paul. That's basically all I'm going to say about that.